At 2:17 a.m., a phone on the CEO's desk would not stop ringing, cutting through that glass tower silence, like a box cutter through cardboard, sharp and rude and impossible to ignore. I was the night cleaner with a lemon rag in one hand and a cart that squeaked on the left wheel, supposed to wipe empty vanish before sunrise. On the seventh ring, I broke the rule and picked up, and that one choice cracked my whole life open. The voice on the other end was fast, tight, all business in Korean, the kind of cadence you hear when a room full of directors has been up all night, and my brain just shifted lanes because I grew up stocking shelves in my aunt's Korean deli on the south side learning verbs, while she corrected my vowels over bowls of steaming rice. He said his name was Park Min-jun, chairman of Hanseong Group, and he was done being polite. Their board had voted to terminate everything with Reed Dynamics lawsuits on deck penalties ready, $450 million on the line. "This cannot wait until morning," he said. And I heard the part he didn't say. "You disrespected us." That word lands hard in Korean, not like a late package, like a slap to the face of a partner. "Chairman Park." I answered in Korean, quiet but steady, and he paused long enough to tell me he hadn't expected the cleaning lady to understand him. He told me what started the fire. A 2-sentence email from our side at 4:52 p.m. on a Friday. No apology, no context, just delay 2 weeks. If you've never felt an email insult you, you haven't worked across cultures. In America, we think short means efficient. In Korea, that can read as "you don't matter." I told him I believed it was a cultural miss, not contempt, and he said, "Intent doesn't erase impact." If Mason Reed called him within the hour and showed respect, he would hold off legal action. You know that feeling when your ribs get tight but your hands get calm? I asked for his private number, wrote it down, then stared at the skyline like it was going to tell me what to do next. I only knew Mason's direct line because I see and remember numbers the way some folks remember recipes. He answered on the second ring, gravel voice, all sleep. "This better be life or death." "It is," I said, "for the company." He woke all the way up in 3 words. 20 minutes later, he was in the office in a sweatshirt and the kind of messy hair money can't buy, and for the first time he looked at me like I hadn't appeared out of a vent. I repeated Park's words in Korean, then in English, and laid out what my aunt drilled into me. Acknowledge regret, ask guidance, commit to repair. Not an argument, a posture. He called, I sat across from him writing those 4 verbs in block letters, and when he said, "I take responsibility for a tone-deaf message," I watched Park's shoulders drop on the tiny video square. Park gave us a narrow bridge. Come to Seoul within 36 hours. Bring someone who understands our language and customs. We pause termination until then. That's when Mason did the last thing I expected at 3 a.m. "Elena, will you come to Seoul as my cultural advisor?" I actually laughed, a quick little breath that said my brain needed a second. "Sir, I do floors and glass. Tonight you saved me from detonating $450 million with the wrong sentence," he said, calm, certain. "You speak the language, you read the cues, I need you. Here's the twist." I said yes, but only after I made him promise I wouldn't be a mascot. Either I was in the room with a voice or I stayed a ghost with a new outfit. He didn't blink. "You're in the room." We flew out that afternoon. First time on a plane for me, and I sat by the window like every kid on a school trip, trying to act cool and failing. We crash-coursed etiquette at 30,000 feet. How to exchange cards with 2 hands. How deep to bow when silence is respect. And when it's warning, which gift says thoughtfulness and not obligation. Somewhere over the Pacific, we stopped being boss and cleaner and turned into something closer to teammates. Seoul was precise and brilliant. Hanseong's conference floor could make a grown executive feel like a freshman. Chairman Park greeted us with that careful politeness that means you are being measured, not welcomed. He asked why culture had never mattered to us in 5 years. Mason didn't perform a speech. He just said, "Because I was arrogant, I thought efficiency was universal. I was wrong. I'm sorry." The air in the room changed a few degrees. "Words are wind," Park said. "What will you do differently?" I laid out a blueprint in Korean. Restructure every touchpoint, staff a liaison dedicated to Hansong. I would personally review our messages for tone and respect through the transition. One of the senior directors, Ms. Choi, looked at me and asked who I was, and I heard the real question under it. Are you here because you're useful or because you're convenient? I'm Elena. I said. I learned your language in a hot kitchen from a woman who believed listening keeps people alive. I understand the respect you expect because I was raised to give it. She didn't smile, but her eyes lost their edge. We asked for a live board session that afternoon, and they gave it to us. 7 faces on a screen, no soft lighting, no place to hide. They threw questions that had edges. Why Friday? Why no apology? What stops you from backsliding when this crisis fades? Mason didn't rush his answers. He let them land, and when he said, "Judge us by changed behavior, not promises," start by letting Elena review every communication and holding us to a written standard, terminate us without penalty if we fail. The room went quiet in the way rooms go quiet when a line gets drawn. Park said, if Ms. Brooks remains as liaison and they see change for a quarter, he will recommend rescinding termination. The next morning, they invited us to a traditional tea service, and if you know, you know. That's family, not vendor. Every gesture had weight. Afterward, Park surprised us again. Your weakness is an opportunity. Build a division that helps American clients stop making the same mistakes. Ms. Brooks will lead it. Han Seong will be first partner. Walking out of that room felt like finding a door where there used to be a wall. Back in Chicago, we built Bridgeway in 3 weeks that felt like 3 years. I wasn't a prop. I wrote the playbook at my kitchen table, then rewrote it, so it sounded like a person speaking, not a memo. I ran workshops where VPs practiced how to apologize without tacking on but the sales closer, learned a bow that didn't look like a shrug. The impatient genius learned to pause for translation without rolling his eyes. I pulled Graham, the guy who fired off that Friday email, into a room and said, "You're going to own it in person." He went pale, then he did it right. "We disrespected your timeline. I'm sorry, here's how we changed the process." Ms. Choi nodded, just a hair, but in that room it felt like a bell. We signed the renewal with a handcrafted pen from Seoul and kept 200 people employed through the spring. That same day, we also launched a new revenue stream because respect turned out to be good business, not just good manners. People inside the company adjusted at different speeds. Some clapped, some stared, a few whispered that the cleaning lady had skipped the line. Yeah, that happened. Nobody who said it ever rolled up a wet floor mat at 4 a.m. and then got their kid to school by 7. One night, Mason walked into my small office with the west-facing window, carrying a folder and a look like someone about to jump into cold water. 2 things, he said. Business and personal. On the business side, partnership, real equity, not just a raise. You retained our biggest client, brought in 3 more, and built a program others want to license. I don't want to just pay you. I want to build with you. On the personal side, he was simple. I look forward to every time you walk in a room. I know the optics. I want clarity. I wrapped both hands around my coffee and told him, if we do this, we do it like adults. Work is work. If we break up, Bridgeway stands, nobody pulls the ladder up behind them. He said, deal. Before we could breathe, my phone lit up. Park urgent. Not to cancel, to promote. Director Brooks, he said in Korean, and hearing that title in his voice did something to my spine. Our board wants you to serve as our Director of International Cultural Relations for the West. Based in Chicago, frequent travel, significant compensation. It was the kind of offer that splits a life into before and after. The next week, I walked the lake at dawn and talked to my aunt out loud, felt a little crazy and a lot grateful. She never told me to be small to make others comfortable. She told me to be useful. We signed the expanded program cleanly. Ms. Choi shook my hand with both of hers. Graham did not send another Friday surprise. Mason introduced me as partner, not employee. And here's the part that will light up the comments. After we inked the deal, Mason proposed on the balcony outside the conference room. No fireworks, no speech, just a man with shaking hands saying he wanted to build the rest of it with me. I said yes to the ring, and the next morning I said yes to Park's global role, which means I travel. I miss things. I juggle jet lag and home and a spreadsheet of time zones, and every time a company avoids blowing up a partnership because somebody slowed down and chose respect, it feels like a win that isn't about money at all. So tell me where you land. Was I right to answer a phone I wasn't supposed to touch? Was Mason right to put a cleaner in a boardroom and then a corner office? Is that justice or favoritism? And do you believe love and work can live in the same house without burning it down? Drop your take in the comments. Push back if you need to tell me what you've seen in your world. And if a story like this hits home, like and subscribe so we can keep talking about the kind of respect that actually changes lives.